I am now starting the meeting recording for the Northside Green Zone Task Force meeting of February 4th. And we do not quite have quorum yet, but we are going to move into hearing a presentation from Task Force member Michelle, and we will come back to roll call after that.
What's the date today, Michelle? Kelly?
February 4th. Did I say something different?
No, I just didn't hear it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. Thanks for keeping us on our toes, Michael. And I'm Michelle Shaw. I am hoping I'm going to do this right as far as sharing my screen. So let's see if I can do that. So is anything coming up for people?
Yes, I'm seeing your screen.
Okay, awesome. Great, and I'm hoping that it will stay up. I have a dog trying to come up on top of me as well, so we'll see how this goes. So great, thanks everybody. I'm going to be presenting on edible boulevards. Some of you were here last year when we were talking about this. In fact, there were a few people on the task force that were with me back when we had our subcommittees, and we had a food and soil subcommittee, and we had edible boulevards as a part of that too before we put it into our work plans. So I'm just going to go through and talk about what happened last year, talk a little bit about our vision for this coming year, and answer any questions that people might have. So I know Kelly sent this out to folks at the end of the last meeting. So I won't go through it super fast, but won't go through it super slow either. So we'll see how it goes. Our edible boulevards, the photo here is one of them in East Phillips. And the initial hopes and dreams. We had the change in the ordinance in Minneapolis to allow fruits and vegetables to be grown on boulevards. That was my first initial hope and dream when I first found out that we could not grow fruits and vegetables on our boulevards. That was kind of my big thing of wanting to change it back in 2019. And after that came increasing food access in the green zones. Another initial hope and dream was to bring community together. Another one was to be intentional about the produce that's planted within each cultural community, so to decolonize. Another one was to have the city decrease salt use on the roads, because whenever I would bring, this topic up of planting things on the boulevards, people would be like, but what about the salt, and what about this and that, and things getting in the boulevards. So that was something that was put in there. And then learning by doing. So who was involved in the city pilot creation? Well, Councilmember Reich was. He was the first one that I took this to. Outside of all of you, actually, you were the first ones that were a part of this. And then I went to Councilmember Reich and Jim Doughton at the Minneapolis Environmental Services Department. Then went to the Southside Green Zone and asked them for their input. Rico Morales, some of you may know, who lives on the South Side, he also was a part of it. And then the Sustainability Department all came together, along with Samara Adam was at the table when we were at that meeting as well, to give some ideas for what to do last March. So what did we do? Our first step was recruiting participants from two neighborhoods, one from the north side and one from the south side. And those were in the Jordan neighborhood and the East Phillips neighborhood. The next thing was to acquire funding for soil tests, different resources, and community expertise, which I'll talk more about in a little bit here. Then I conducted some pre-surveys and home visits. Step 4 was to do some soil testing at each home site. And then at that time, we had, I think, 10 home sites that were going to be happening. Step 5 was, after those soil tests were interpreted, we had a soil professor named Anna Lindquist at McAllister, and she offered her time to read the soil test results. And then once those results were gone through and things looked like they were good to go, then the participants were prepped for the gardening process. So the next step after that was, sorry, it's hard for me to see with the couple things that are in my way here. There was a group, one on each side. So we had Growing North Minneapolis on the north side and Little Earth Farm on the south side. Those urban ag groups came and they taught participants how to create gardens. So it was from taking it from the grass to the planting of their boulevards. So they didn't do it for them, they did it with them so that they could be self-sustainable and actually create it then later on as well and do another one and hopefully even be able to teach others how to do it. And finally, after that, doing follow-ups with everybody through post-survey, asking for photos, and then going to keep following up with people who are in it now and keep them in this as long as they want to keep continuing. So, were there any obstacles? Yes, there was no funding. We had COVID, and we found out there was lead in the soil. So back in early June, we suddenly found out that we didn't have any funding from the city anymore. They had committed to doing some soil testing funding. And once we found out that that wasn't a possibility, I was able to get some funding from Hennepin County and their Master Gardener program. So that, and they ended up being a huge lifesaver. They actually created most of the funding that we needed. So we got it funding to do the soil testing in addition to paying Growing North Minneapolis and Little Earth Farm for the services that they provided. So they were invaluable. And then, of course, COVID made it more difficult to recruit and to meet with potential partners. It also required developing a safe process for having volunteers and staff go out to support the participants, but we were able to create that. It just made it a little more tricky. And then I wasn't prepared for finding lead in soil. Apparently, you know, a lot of people knew that already about the boulevards. You know, it was common for it to be near the homes, but I was prepared to find out about arsenic. That's why, you know, we were paying a lot more to have the soil tested, especially in East Phillips. But to find out that there was lead at, you know, 80 to 135 parts per million, that was, I guess, more concerning to me in both North Minneapolis and South Minneapolis. And the highest one was 135 parts per million. That was on the south side at a space that had not been rehabilitated back when they rehabilitated a good part of the arsenic triangle down there. So anyway, and just so you know, 100 parts per million is acceptable in Minnesota. The EPA says 300 to 400 parts per million is acceptable. And in my mind, we should be shooting for 0 parts per million. And the Minnesota Department of Health also says we should be shooting for 0 parts per million. And then we also had 3 people drop out as a result of these findings of lead. Also, as a result of these findings of lead, I had asked our partner, so Anna Lindquist, I had said, was a partner in terms of reading our soil test results, but she also became a partner offering her class as a partnership working with us. And so they looked at our soil test results and came up with some ideas on how we could be doing better, working with the soil in a more healthy way, and also how we could be gardening better with lead in the soil. And so this is just one example of one of the brochures that was created. And, there were like 20 awesome brochures. So I'm just going through these brochures to see, which one or ones can we be using in the next, in this spring that we can be sharing with the community. So this is really awesome that we have something to put out to the neighborhoods this year. And so our funding and donations came from a lot of different places. As I already said, Hennepin County was one. McAllister College actually paid for a couple of our soil tests. And these soil tests cost $120 each. So that was huge to have those covered. Mother Earth Gardens donated a lot of soil and compost, along with Lowe's and Bachman's. Home Depot did all of the lumber for our raised gardens. We had raised beds in about half of them. So we gave people the option to have raised beds if they were between 50 and 100 parts per million, or 50 actually, 50 and 100, they had the choice. If it was over 100, it was going to be mandated, but the only person that was over 100 dropped out. So, and then Baker's Creek Heirloom Seeds, Dave and Tony Hauser, and then there were a number of other people who donated seedlings. And then this is just a list of even more partners. A lot of volunteers from the community helped out. And then, of course, Patsy Parker and Chad Hebert from Growing North and Little Earth Farm. They were just incredible to work with. So the donations and funding were, of course, the soil testing, because we did that before anybody was able to start building their gardens, which was so important, especially finding out about the lead. And then, of course, like I said, we paid for one urban ag group to go out and mentor the participants with how to build their gardens. And either they were learning how to create a raised bed or learning how to build the in-ground garden. And then it was also for donations of lumber, screws, soil, compost, and manure. We had our plants and seed donations. It was also time needed for reading soil test results, the time and transportation of goods and soil tests, and then time and the helping of building the garden beds as well. And then most importantly, we have the participants. So I just wanted to show a few pictures of the actual beds that were created here. This one was in North Minneapolis. For those of you who might know Adway Pugh, this is the one at her house. And this one's on the north side too. And another on the north side. And then just a couple pre and post survey questions. knowing what we know now about having lead levels of 35 to 135 parts per million in 3 of our neighborhoods, what do you think we should recommend for the ordinance change to include fruits and vegetables? So one option to move forward with changing the ordinance, but educate people about safe gardening practices. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what the rest of it is. But that's the blue one. But educate people about safe gardening practices. Yeah, essentially to educate people about safe gardening when there's lead in the soil or contaminants in the soil. The red one is to commit city funding and a staff intern to a second summer of this city pilot. So really making sure that there's somebody there to help support this. The third one, the other purple one, is to have a combination of the two. So having city support. So yeah, that is that one. And then on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you know about transforming a lawn into a food garden? So you'll see the pre-survey is, all the people that started out. And then, as I said, 3 people dropped out after the soil testing. And so, as you can see, we had everybody move to the right. So that's good. Everybody was in the 3 to 4 category. So everyone moved up in their knowledge, which was awesome. So then thinking about how goals have changed from 2019 to now. So thinking about how much hunger has changed in America over the last 2 years, the fact that there's a city ordinance that needs to be changed, that's great. But what really is important is providing access to fresh produce to anyone who needs it. What really needs to be addressed is our hunger issue, is feeding our people. That's number one and has to remain number one. Another thing is teaching participants gardening skills so that they can have self-sustainability and mentoring others. Another goal is partnering with urban ag nonprofits. So Growing North Minneapolis and Little Earth Farm, and how important that is for educating our community members and creating youth mentorships. So I just think it's essential that we are creating these local partnerships, how essential it is. Like Michael and I, Project Sweetie Pie, Growing North Minneapolis, Spark Y, Tiny Fields Project. There are a lot of groups coming together to inspire and motivate and bring youth together in 2021. And I'd like to see that continue to grow with this program as well. Identifying ways to safely garden with lead in the soil, that's another goal that has changed and been brought forth as a result of learning while doing. Another thing is exploring possible bioremediators for lead. And learning by doing, as I just said. And finally, a culmination of all of this is kind of leading to the amendment of the city ordinance. You can see how it's gone from number 1 down to number 7. And while it's important, all these other things that lead to the sustainability of our community is really the crux of what's important, in my opinion. And then the future goals as facilitator and for the group. The first one is to have more participants who are Native, Latinx, Black, and communities of color. To invite people to the table now who are from these communities to work on growing the project. To work on grant writing with folks from both green zones. To continue to build relationships with people in both neighborhoods. Another is to continue to support past participants through planting resources, volunteers, and possible staff time. Another is to have a plan in place for lead. Another is to move towards the city ordinance amendment. And I'm continuing to work with Kevin Reich and Jim Doughton on that. And another is to allow certain fruit trees to be planted on our boulevards. I've talked with the person at the forestry department in charge of that. That is not looking too likely, which I'm frustrated about, but that's another conversation to be had. So with all of that being said, I am open to questions and also hoping that there might be some people here who's interested in doing some work with this and possibly being a part of a coordinating committee.
Thanks, Michelle. That was great. So it does look like we have quorum now. We'll do a roll call in just a bit. But yeah, what kind of questions do folks have for Michelle?
How come we can't have fruit trees in boulevards?
So that's a great question. I've been told it's because that's not their focus. That, you know, people get upset when they have all of these fruits that are on the ground, that neighbors get upset about it, that people get upset when people take their fruits and everything. I had a very frustrating conversation last week talking with this gentleman about it, and he just, I even said, you know, couldn't we even have just a pilot about it and do it like St. Paul does, where they have these smaller trees like cherry trees or crabapple trees, where it doesn't make a mess on people's yards and it's just, you know, contained, and they put it in the parts of their boulevards where it wouldn't branch out into other people's yards. And he said there was no way to do that. So so I did not follow his logic at all. I would, my next step is to go and start talking to our park board.
Okay, sure.
It looks like Leslie has a question.
Yeah, Leslie.
Hello, thank you for that presentation. I have two things. There's at the University of Minnesota, there's a soil professor. His name is Nick Janinski, and myself and other students and grad students, we went in different areas in Minneapolis and tested the soil. So the people from the community in these areas brought samples of their soil, and they were tested immediately there for free. And he would be a good source for you to get in touch with. Also at the U, there's a former person I used to work with. They put trees on the boulevards and have the citizens do it. So there might be some that are in that that group that might be able to help you. And well, I know Ashley would be able to guide you with getting trees on the boulevard there, because that's what she does. She works with the community of people that want to put trees on the boardwalk. And so there's like learning modules and stuff that I was a part of for the community to learn how to take care of the trees. So if we can probably connect by email, and I could give you their contact information. But thank you for what you're doing. And one more question. As far as the wood in the raised beds, are they being tested? Because sometimes those have arsenic in it, the way that the wood is treated.
We got untreated wood. So I'm hoping that there wasn't anything in the untreated wood. Do you think untreated wood would be okay, Leslie?
I don't think so. I think it should, but then you never know. I don't know how what they do to preserve it. So that's something you'd probably have to talk to the people that gave it to you. Maybe Mr. Cheney might know, since he did so many gardens over North Minneapolis. So he might know more about that, but I know that some of that wood was treated. So Mike would be a good person to ask about that. I don't know.
Yeah, that was kind of my rationale for getting the untreated wood, thinking that fingers crossed there wouldn't be anything on it. But that's a good point. And I will definitely reach out to you, Leslie. Thank you.
Can you hear me? This is Michael Cheney.
Yeah.
Gotcha, Michael.
Michelle, I just wanted to bring to people's attention, we did submit a proposal to the Minnesota Department of Ag for some potential funding for the project. And one of the additions, if so granted, would identify some benching that was that the folks at Spark Y have created, and we would install those benches, one at the Celestial Garden at 2210, where we're doing North Minneapolis's first food forest, one up in the far north in the, is it Bohannon? Is that how they say it? And one with a daycare program in Gloria Freeman at 10th and Humboldt, who has a daycare program that is doing training pre-kindergarten kids, preschool kids in horticulture, urban farming.
All right, I see. Yeah, that's great, Michael. Thanks. Lene has a hand up, and then Jackie. Lene, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Michelle, did you find evidence of arsenic and lead, or just lead? Not just lead, because that's very serious, but was there arsenic as well?
No, it was all lead.
It was all lead. Oh, okay.
My question was, what type of help are you looking for right now? Are you needing help with grant writing? Or are you looking more for just like bodies for when you're doing the actual planting and stuff?
No, so what I'm looking for is having some folks from the Northside be a part of like a mini coordinating committee, so that, you know, the people who live on the north side are the ones who, you know what's, you know, you live there, and I am living over here in Northeast, and so I know my neighborhood, but I don't know the north side neighborhoods. And so I would love to have some people on, and actually I have someone from the Southside Green Zone who wants to be a part of this coordinating committee, so that hopefully we can replicate what's going on with the grant. Cross our fingers that we get it, because this would only be for the north side. So she wants to be on the coordinating committee. So I would love to have some folks from the north side be on it, so that we can come together and figure out logistics and planning and everything. So yeah, I mean, everybody can donate whatever time they have to do, you know, anything like soil testing or whatever. So whatever level of time you have. But what would be really awesome is to have some folks who could, you know, put in some time for like I said, the coordinating committee. And I wish I could be more specific about like time and what that looks like, because this is just kind of grassroots and being built from the ground up. So we can create that as we get together.
Well, I'd like to go even one step further. That it's one thing for us as a green zone task force to come together and educate ourselves and figure out our vision for the future and monitor and kind of regulate that process and contribute to that process. It's another thing to really take some ownership of some of these grassroots initiatives, and particularly this one in particular, because it already has legs in the Southside and the Northside, that this project could indeed be a signature kind of initiative by the Green Zone Task Force, North and South, that they could put some muscle behind and, and really try to systemically figure out how do we overcome policy, how do we address the food crisis. And so this would be a great project because it really starts, it's in this proposal that we submitted to the Agri Grant, we building a greener future, block by block, house by house, boulevard garden by boulevard garden. And so this seems to be as a very grassroots led project that could, with the proper funding, could really be a signature and kind of an iconic vision for a community where we have boulevard gardens that string together, community gardens, string together, schoolyard gardens. And so it's almost going down to the deepest of our roots as community and birthing it from the very genesis of community, house by house, brick by brick. And with that, establishing a vision, but also, you go through some neighborhoods and they have, banners on their streets. They have some kind of signature that ties the community together, that you're in this neighborhood. And so it'd be great for this project, or great for North Minneapolis, to really think of it on this level, that we could really aim at a move to try to overcome the challenges, change the policy. And this is what equity truly looks like. And I can think of no greater project or grander scheme, schematic that could really demonstrate the work of the Northside Green Task Force, North, and the Southside Green Task Force. Of course, in the Southside, there are folks like Clifton Williams and other who also share a similar vision and have worked on the George Floyd, gardens over there. And so we could become the city of gardens in this nation and have it all emanate from the Green Zone Task Force, North and South. It's just very exciting in terms of how organic and how what microcosmic kind of going to the deepest roots of our community and putting our stamp of approval on a project.
Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hands raised. I think as Michael so eloquently shared, this is definitely something to get your hands dirty with and make an impact with the Northside Green Zone. So again, reach out to Michelle if you want to get involved and be part of that thought team, or if you have, it's not just the task force members. I think, Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if there are friends or family that you have in the North Side who might be interested in participating in this.
Yes, please spread the word. Anyone you know who would be passionate about it, and could be youth. So we'll take anyone who'd be passionate about being a part of this. So thank you, everybody. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Michelle. So let's do roll call and agenda adoption and acceptance of minutes super quick, and then we can get back into more of the meeting material. So I'm going to call on names of the task force members. If you can just say that you're present or here or whatever way you'd like to indicate that you are paying attention. So first I will start with Michael Cheney.
Michael Cheney, reporting for duty.
Wonderful. Next, Leslie. Leslie, you
I'm
might
here.
be muted. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Julie.
Julie Learson. I'm here.
You made it.
How do we know you're not an imposter?
Well, I was listening to you talk, Michael, and I sent Kelly a text, which I'm sure she's not paying attention to because she's facilitating this meeting, and it said, Michael Cheney, go big or go home.
Thank you.
Great. Lars.
Yeah, I am here. I'm in a coffee shop and it's got spotty internet, and I'm having a hard time joining with video, so it's also kind of noisy here. So I'm just keeping myself muted, but I'm here.
Okay. Thanks for the heads up. Lene.
Lene Nelson Sice, I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you. Michelle.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jackie.
I'm here.
Anthony.
I'm here. I'm also having some tough internet connections too, so it's going in and out on my end. So some of the stuff is spotty, but I'm here.
Thanks, Anthony. Something's going around today. I've been on calls with folks having internet issues all day. Jim.
I'm here. This is Jim.
Awesome. Thank you. And Roxanne.
I'm here.
Perfect. That makes a quorum. And let's quickly do the adoption of the agenda. Oh, I was going to drop that into the chat earlier and I did not. Give me 2 seconds. If you have it in front of you, glance it over. We're going to talk quickly about just our meeting times based on the poll that I had sent out before. Maybe have a little chat about folks' interest in an election for leadership for Northside Green Zone. And then get into a little bit more of the meat of what are some updates on work plan items and any budget requests with the remaining budget dollars that we have. So again, the link is in the chat if you are on Teams. And then hopefully folks had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from last month, which I included in the email reminder to everyone. So do we have a motion to adopt the agenda and accept the meeting minutes from January 7th?
So moved.
Thanks, Jackie.
I can second.
Thanks, Lars. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, I will go ahead and call roll again and just say yes or no if you approve or don't approve. So starting at the top with Michael.
approve.
Leslie,
Approve.
Julie. Oh, Julie's non-voting. Well,
No, but I'll say yes anyway.
thank you. Lars,
Yes.
Lene, Lene. If you're on mute, if you said.
Yes, approve.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Roxanne,
Yes.
Michelle,
I think you said Michelle, and I approve.
I did.
Okay.
Sorry. Jackie,
Yes.
and then Anthony and Jim are non-voting, but do either of you have any questions or concerns or additions?
I don't. This is Jim.
Cool. All right, all that business is taken care of. The agenda is adopted and the meeting minutes from last month have been accepted. So
Can
next
can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Michael.
It just struck me as you were going through roll call. Is there a reason why the food council isn't, or a representative from the food council is not part of the Green Zone Task Force? And then I would also raise the question, what about Minnesota Health or Minneapolis Health Department? It seems like, in the whole slate of things, that those two entities of the city, are very closely aligned or intersect, overlay, and certainly the Minneapolis Health Department has resources that certainly could be applied for some of our green zone initiatives, the health issue of lead, food security. Those all seem to be integral initiatives that could cross both sectors.
Yeah, great question. Regarding the health department, we do have Marquita Keys from the health department, who is a task force member.
Okay.
And then we have had Lisa Smestad attend meetings off and on to give updates on the Lead and Healthy Homes program. If it's something where we want more updates or more presentations from either of those programs or other programs, we can definitely bring them in at any time. Regarding homegrown, that's a great point. I know that there is cross-representation on homegrown from different departments, like the planning department is on homegrown and sustainability is has a person on homegrown in addition to all the community members. That's something where we could talk with them and see if there's anybody who is interested in attending these meetings. I think there's also that intersection with the Southside Green Zone. So maybe the joint quarterly meetings, which we'll get to confirming in just a minute, with Southside Green Zone might make sense as a good place for then homegrown to also come to those. Or maybe it's something that for folks who are particularly interested in the healthy food access portion of the Northside Green Zone work, that we can find a more regular connection with the Homegrown Food Council on those specific items related to the healthy food access. But I'm open. What do others think?
Well, it just seems like, again, we're siloed.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Yep.
I think it's a great idea what he brought up, and it's very important, especially with the lead, because that leads to all kinds of health concerns. So I agree with Michael 100% that we should have these people involved in some part of our meeting.
Yeah, I would third that proposal. This is Michelle.
So in terms of a next step, what are we looking at? Do we want to have another presentation on the Lead and Healthy Homes work? Do we want to, you want me like sort of behind the scenes to make any connections with some folks from the Food Council, or make sure that they're aware of and invited to Northside Green Zone meetings and in the quarterly joint meetings with Southside? What sounds good?
Well, you know, I always go to content, educational content, and I also go to community engagement, community programming. And if, you know, for the sake of sustainability and longevity of the Green Zone Task Force, you know, how do we know people are learning about it? What is the welcome mat to engage them, involve them in the process? And what is the track record since the formation of the Green Zone Task Force, you know, have we put together, you know, a brochure or something that kind of lays out, you know, what we've accomplished? Have we thought through what is our mission and goals for 2021? You know, and so all of those things, again, in terms of funding from the city council, agreement to have staffing, you know, that I think that we've got to do a better job of marketing and promotion and engagement, and so that we're building a body of work that can justify our coming together, justify our existence, and help focus the lens so that we have a map and a way for people to navigate this process and this agency. And unless we think through, talk through, create tools of the trade, then we will not have a compass that keeps us on point.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, Michael. And it's something that I've struggled with for sure as like the only staff person for this initiative, which includes so many different issue areas. Like, where is the intersection with all of the other departments and players in this work, and what items are we focusing in on, and how do we elevate those to policymakers, to leadership, to community members, and do that welcome mat engagement, like you're saying. Michelle, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, well, I guess, first of all, I think it's really important to have consistency. So if we were able to get one person from Homegrown to come every time, I think that would be important. You know, it's important that we're all here consistently together. So I'm wondering is there something that would need to change in the bylaws or something of the Green Zone in order to add somebody from Homegrown to this group?
If we wanted to create a specific seat for a Homegrown member, then yes, we would want to change the resolution that created the Green Zone to add that seat. The other option would be just to have someone attend as a guest, and that could just be done via conversation with Homegrown, and if there's someone who is interested in kind of being that liaison in a like less formal official way, but still sort of officially. And then the other would be if there was a vacancy on the Northside Green Zone Task Force, that we could have someone from Homegrown fill that position, and it wouldn't be like officially a homegrown position, but they would have a standing as a voting member on the task force. So a few different options. We can start by engaging with the staff and leadership team for homegrown and just see what the appetite is. And maybe Michelle and Michael, I might lean on you because I think both of you have relationship with Tamara and perhaps others who are on the Homegrown Food Council in the work that you're doing in community around food. And so maybe I'll send out an email and just copy the both of you on it, if that sounds good.
Sure.
Yep.
In my spare time.
In your spare time, Michael.
Great.
Yes, and Jackie, I see your question. The official title is the Homegrown Food Policy Council. And it is a city advisory board, just like the green zones are. So it's appointed by the city council. All the appointments are either done by the mayor or city council members. And they advise the city, in particular, the homegrown program in the health department on issues related to healthy food access, supporting small food businesses, growing food, producing food, distributing food, all of that. Over the last couple of years, they've been working on a food action plan, which has been a big lift, and there's been a lot of community meetings on that. And so maybe that's another thing too. We could get an update on the food action plan at a future Green Zone meeting and weigh in on some of the initiatives there where there might be crossover or intersection.
You know, another idea that pops into my head, is Friday we had our first Green New Deal task force, and it's a statewide initiative that been able to get Congresswoman Ilhan and Representative Hornstein. But, could we look at even, it seems like to me, homegrown Minneapolis, the Green Zone Task Force, the Environmental Council that, Michelle, you used to sit on, and I don't know how many, the Climate 2040 plan. We've got all of these variables and all these variations that if we really, are we talking about maybe looking at some kind of green fair, green summit that would bring all of these three different divergent community advisors together to really think about what is our work jointly look like? Because again, all of us here in the Green Zone, we seem to be kind of overarching everything from workforce development to equity and inclusion, food and climate and green buildings. And there's other agencies and entities within the city, certainly, and advisory committees within that are working in tandem with city leadership. At some juncture, I think that we need to maybe think in terms of doing a summit that embraces all of those interests, all of those concerns, but also highlights some of those opportunities. And opportunities then lead to financial funding. And so it becomes a spiraling staircase that leads us all back to, we end up where we began. But, I think we could be having a greater impact and having greater effect if at some juncture, not only the Southside Green Zone, but we look at some of these other environmental green initiatives and agencies and have a joint gathering, a joint Zoom, or really try to see is, where are we headed to in space and time?
I like that a lot. We could start that conversation at the quarterly joint meeting with Southside Green Zone, and then also through this email connection with Homegrown, and maybe see within the next month or two if we could start planning for something like that.
Right.
I am taking down those notes as next steps.
Michelle, what was the name of that agency you served on?
SEAC, or the Community Environmental Advisory Commission.
Well, both of them then. Any of them.
Yep. The nice thing about that one is it's also staffed by sustainability, so they're easy to rope in. I could just talk to my supervisor.
Cool.
I think kind of along those lines. So Jackie had asked this question at the beginning of the meeting, and we're kind of swirling around it a little bit in this conversation. For our 2021 meeting schedule, thank you for everyone who filled out the Google form that I sent or responded to an email that I sent to you. The best time for everyone, it looks like, is going to be the first Tuesday of the month between 5 to 7 p.m. So I will be sending out calendar invitations for that date, for those dates, I should say. So our next meeting will take place on March. Ooh. Calendar is, there we go. March 2nd from 5 to 7. And then there are, and then we had also, there was also interest in quarterly joint meetings with the Southside Green Zone. I've confirmed with them that they are also interested in quarterly joint meetings with you all. Instead of adding an additional meeting, because you are all very busy people and volunteering your time on this, we will replace one of our regular monthly meetings with a joint meeting. I'm trying to have it land as close as possible on the Northside Green Zone's regular meeting, so that'll be a consistent time for all of you. There's a couple exceptions. One is we would normally be meeting on Tuesday, July 6th, because that is the day after the 4th of July holiday, or at least when it's being observed. I'm thinking we could move that up to the previous Tuesday, which is actually the 5th Tuesday of June. And as a 5th Tuesday, hopefully there aren't any recurring conflicts going on that day. And then in September, the first Tuesday is on Rosh Hashanah, and so the city can't have meetings on that day. So if it's all right with folks, we would move it to, again, the 5th Tuesday of August. So that'd be August 31st. And then the first Tuesday in November is actually municipal elections, which is another day we cannot have public meetings. And so for that one, I would propose us just moving it to the second Tuesday of the month. That was the second best time that folks were available. So that might have been a little confusing about how I just said all of that. I will send you a list of all of the dates in an email and the calendar holds. But does anyone have any concerns about that new meeting time going forward? Great. I take no comments as being content with that going forward. And then our quarterly meetings with the Southside Green Zone would be, the first one would be the April meeting. So that's April 6th. The July meeting, which again, because of our scheduled shift, it would actually be June 29th. And then the October 5th meeting. So again, I will indicate that in the email that I send out. So thanks everyone again for getting the information on that. Hopefully we will have fewer conflicts going forward. And then we were going to have a little chat about Northside Green Zone leadership. I'm wondering, let's see. Roxanne, you're still on. Did you want to talk at all about what the role has been like for you as a leader over the past year? for the Northside Green Zone in agenda planning and meeting facilitation?
Yeah, it's pretty much just kind of having a core team come together every week, or well, really every other week, but we do consistently connect with each other outside of the hours that we schedule with each other to meet, usually during like having some phone conversations or just checking in with each other. But really all that's required is like an hour or two once a month or twice a month. And then we come together and we talk about like just prioritizing our work and how we want to move forward. We have been doing our best to like tailor what we'd like to see on the agenda to our development or to our work plan that we came up with when we first started. So really it's just about taking some leadership, you know, like a lot of people have a lot of ideas, but how we build the agenda is done ahead of time. So if people want to start bringing in different conversations, then now is a good time to stand up and take some leadership and start coming together before these meetings and talking about what we're going to talk about. Yeah, and I'd like to take a break, so I totally would love for someone to take my spot. That's all I think I'm going to say right now.
Thanks, Roxanne. And I can provide some context too for other advisory bodies to the city. Many of them either have like a chair co-chair situation or like a leadership team, which can be usually up to 4 people. It works best. And so, you know, Michelle has been on the Community Environmental Advisory Commission, as she mentioned. There, it's an elected chair and co-chair where both of them would meet with staff, as Roxanne was saying, like once a month to help put the agenda together and then support the facilitation of the meetings. For Northside Green Zone, we've had Roxanne, Anita, and Vanessa facilitating. Princess was also one of the members of the leadership until she had to step out last fall. And so they, yes, again, meet with me once, maybe twice a month for a phone call to put together the agenda. And then they determine which parts of the agenda they're going to facilitate. They were invited to step into that when our paid facilitators under a grant, Sam and James, were no longer, their grant ended. And so we kind of needed to pull things together really quick and wanted to keep the momentum going with some strong leadership. And they were generous enough to offer that extra time. So it's not a huge lift, but I would say it's another couple hours per month. And again, many other of the advisory bodies for the city do an election process. So if folks are interested in that, what we could do at our March 2nd meeting is anyone who is interested in being part of the leadership team can make a pitch for themselves or kind of put their hat in the ring. And then we can do either normally in person, we would kind of all do a blind voting, but I could set up a form that would enable us to do something like that. Or if there's just, 2, 3, or 4 people who are interested, then we could just all vote as a group that all of them are welcome to be on the leadership. I'm curious for other folks who've been on other advisory bodies or boards or things, how has that worked for you? Do you have any feedback on how this should work for the Northside Green Zone?
Well, I have an alternative idea.
Go for it.
So our purview is really, kind of a green focus and focal point. There are other entities and agency in the community that are doing, who their template is around youth leadership or civic leadership. And so how can we integrate our efforts and thoughts and broaden our bandwidth and our base and I think of organizations like Pillsbury United that has that Public Allies. I think of the African American Leadership Forum. I think of NET that we're currently working on. Could we actually take our focal, in order to raise the bar, get more people online and engaged in our efforts that we see, our agenda, could we take an integrative approach and really try to identify, fellowships? I guess that's the term that folks are using now. They're fellows, community fellows. Could we really look to some of these other agencies, that might be serving a broader agenda, but then we might approach them with the idea of, since the Green New Deal is so prominent as terms of a national agenda, we would be interested in incorporating some of your young leaders or some of your fellows, from a community perspective, to come join with us in terms of learning about the environment, about food access, and applying your leadership skills to advance the agenda that the Green New Deal or the Green Zone is advocating.
Hey, Michael, I think if you stepped up and you became one of the leaders of the Green Zone now, who could set the agendas and stuff, you would have a better position to be able to reach out to people in our community than Kelly would. So I think until we can find the young leadership that you're speaking of to come join these boring governmental meetings, I think it's up to people like you and me, who are here to actually find that leadership. We can't expect, other white people to try to find our people. But I think.
Well, I don't think that I'm referring to that. I mean, we've got organizations, for instance, like, James Trice and Sam and that Advance now have a new cohort of fellows. And so there's agencies and entities that are already in place. I certainly know that I don't have the bandwidth. I'm working on Green New Deal task forces, all kinds of local and regional think tanks, and I don't have the capacity to dedicate to it. So, but I know that there are other entities that would cross-pollinate and cross-fertilize our efforts, and it seems like it is a opportunity for us to think of how do we bring new people, bring young people into the fold who have already assigned and aligned, through their organizational work or whatever they might be doing, and we would just make a proposal or reach out to some of those groups to see if some of those young leaders who are being nurtured and who are being promoted, that the Green New Deal, the Green Zone Task Force is one site, one location where that we're open to bringing these young leaders forward. Just a suggestion.
Would you be willing to help Kelly write that letter and send that and make sure that we get the names of the organizations and people that you would like, the staff to connect with? So then that way, it has the language that you want in the letter. And that sounds like something that maybe would only take less than an hour of your time.
In my spare time, sure.
Thank you.
And I think we could have also a both and in this situation. We have 19 members on the Northside Green Zone Task Force right now. I think there's an opportunity for members who are currently on to step up and take on some of that organizing, and maybe then also be the connections to some of these new young leaders that we can bring into these meetings. You don't have to be a member to participate. You don't have to be a member to do any of the activities or initiatives that come out of this, those grassroots things that, in addition to the Boulevard Gardens that I know many people are working on. So I think there's only opportunity available. And I know, Michael, you mentioned the EJCC. I know Leslie is one of the new part of the new cohort for that. And so, I don't know, Leslie, if there are any thoughts you have on others within EJCC who should be or would be interested in attending more Northside Green Zone meetings or supporting any of the work, or maybe just updates that we should be getting of the work that EJCC members are doing.
And Kelly, as we advance NET, that, we're looking at partnerships with, the Tree Trust and a wide array of environmental groups. All I'm suggesting is that one of those intersections could indeed be the Green Zone Task Force, and that some of those young people that we are nurturing and introducing to, civics and municipal, how their city works, that this could indeed be one of those stops on the Underground Railroad to expose them to how their city works, how their municipality works, and what a great opportunity for them to weigh in and get involved on a regular, consistent level to build their understanding, build their awareness, and build their confidence.
Yep. That's great. Sort of like the smallest undercase D democracy at work.
Right.
So how long, I have a question for Michael. So I don't know how long it'd take for you to write that in your spare time, but do you have any recruitment ideas, like tables at the St. Paul campus at the U, or over at some of these colleges where the youth are getting in these environmental classes to have a better understanding? Because a lot of the youth, we probably have to really educate, just basics. I don't know. And then I know that you've been working over North Minneapolis at North High and some of these high schools. So maybe you might know some youth too. I know that you do a wide array of work with the youth as well in the North Side. So that's a great idea you have. So I was just wondering the contacts that you have. I wouldn't mind reaching out to some of the youth and working on that program. I'll bring the ideal to the EJCs. We have a meeting next week, and I'll bring that there. If there's some kind of proposal or some way that you want me to word it to them, I'd be more than happy to do that. But everybody's always invited, and I do let them know that this meeting does exist and the times. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I was just, again, I know that Urban League, they have a fellows program, and I know African American Leadership Forum, that they have a young fellows program. Pillsbury United, they have a cohort with young fellows. And so, again, whether or not they are part of the coordinating committee for the Green Zone or not, but the one thing that many of those institutions don't have is a green agenda. And so if we can reach out to them and framing this as a leadership in the green space, then we are then starting to build that passageway, that stairway, so that those organizations, those institutions we're learning by doing, we're learning by being, and that we're at the tables where these conversations are held, and that's what we do here. And, it doesn't require that, folks have a PhD, a BA, or an MA, but they can be involved in the civics of their community in particular as we move to address the Green New Deal and all of this equity and inclusion, the more that we can broaden our base, I think that the better we will serve the community.
Hey, how much time do we have on this, Kelly? Because I had one more thing I wanted to say.
On
don't
this agenda
yeah.
topic, we don't really have time associated. So, I mean, the next thing we'll just jump into some work plan updates, but go ahead with what you've.
Isn't there like $4,000 left in the green zones? Because I was thinking, I don't feel comfortable with inviting young people to the table without paying them some really decent stipends. So could we use the rest of the money to invite young people to join our meetings and pay them a modest stipend, not like, you know, I know adults were getting like $50, but maybe if we can offer them $50 stipends, I guess that's okay.
Yeah, we have $6,100 remaining for the Northside funds. One of the things that I think we had talked about on one of our planning calls was if folks have ideas on how they would want those dollars to be spent. We don't have a deadline. James Trice is kind of holding that in his public policy project organization for us to use as we have things that we want to spend the funds on. If there are ideas like that where we want to use those funds in a timely manner, one thing we were talking about is maybe having like some like pitches or something, and then review. So anyone could bring forward an idea, and then the task force members would review those anonymously, and we could vote on if there's ways to fund. That's one way to do it. The other could be just as things come up and we decide as a group to fund them. So I could do an estimate of like, you know, how many youth we could pay at $50 a meeting to attend.
That'd be exciting. Yeah, and then maybe we could put the word out. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Miss Leslie.
I'm sorry. I was just wondering, is there going to be an age group for that? Are we going to target high school students, or are we going to target college students? Because it's a good point that we're going to be helping them, but I'm looking at it more in our future, because we need people to pick up the torches once we're older. You know what I mean? To be involved, like Michael said, it's still building our community, but then it's looking in our future. So my question is, what age group are we going to target?
I would say let's target high schoolers, since we don't have any colleges over here.
Well, we might have Northside students who might be in college, or we might, I mean, Northside residents who are in college. You know, I think that the age for instance, like public policy, you know, is 18 to 24. In the Northside safety net that we're generating, that's going to be 16 to, you know, 20, 21 is still being discerned. So there's any number of models that we can look to, talk to some of these groups that have these public allies, African American Leadership Forum, NAACP, Urban League. You know, how can we get not only the young people who are participating with them, but they're going to be younger and more innovative and more concerned about climate and some of these same things that we're advocating. And so I don't think we need to rush to judgment. I think we need to explore the idea, reach out to some other agencies in our community and see what their thoughts are, and would they and then have that conversation, and then come back and look at moving it forward.
And I'd also like to recognize that we do have two folks who would qualify, at least two, who would qualify on our Northside Green Zone Task Force already. So Chavez is a high school student, and Akia is a college student. And so what do we do for existing members in addition to those that we would be wanting to reach out and add to these meetings?
getting
And I
them
see
to the meetings.
Yeah, well, Akia had class conflict, and I did text Chavez, but I didn't hear back from him today. I see Julie has a comment in the chat suggesting a target of 16, age 16 to 24. So thanks, Julie, I captured that. So what feels like a good next step to wrap up this conversation? Are folks interested in having an election for a chair, co-chair, or leadership type small group for the Northside Green Zone to take on the agenda planning and meeting facilitation from Roxanne, Anita, and Vanessa? You know, or if they would also be able to put in their pitch to continue on. And then is that separate from this conversation about engaging more youth? Or are we moving forward on both of those tracks?
Can I ask a question? Can we nominate people and then have an election? I think election and a nomination, because I mean, some of, you know, I don't know if people feel comfortable being nominated. I don't know, because it's like, okay, well, I want to do it, okay, and then it's like, okay, well, there that person is. But if a person, you know, I don't know how we would do it if, you know, people don't want to, or they're shy or what. I was just wondering, we're going to nominate folks.
Yeah, for the Community Environmental Advisory Commission, people can kind of put themselves forward or be nominated. If they're nominated by someone, then they have the right to say, like, no, I'm not comfortable or not interested in that. So that's a great idea, Leslie, to allow for nominations, because yeah, someone might be shy about putting themselves forward, but would be open to the opportunity when asked to step into that role.
So when are we going to nominate or put in hats, or is this going to be a separate thing, or how are we going to do that?
We could do that at our March meeting. So folks would have a month to think about whether they were interested in it. They could reach out to me or Roxanne or Anita and Vanessa about questions that they might have. And then at our March meeting, we could have anyone who's interested or anyone who wants to nominate someone, put them forward and have a vote.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I was going to say sound like a plan, but I have problems with unmuting.
And I can see Jackie nodding for those who are on the phone. Any other comments on that one? Otherwise, we can move forward with that as a plan.
Do we want to stay away from official officer positions? So like we could have a youth engagement officer that's kind of responsible for being that Northside Green Zone sleeper cell that Michael was describing.
I hate the word officer, like to use that for our roles.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't hate it, but it just doesn't. I agree with you. The whole like being the regular, you know, roles of president and vice chair and all that, like that doesn't necessarily feel as good to this group. But I think there should be names. There's no reason why we couldn't create new names to, you know, express the position.
Yeah, just like some sort of, not job title, because I'm not getting paid for this, but something like some official title, I guess. But also I see the merits of not formalizing it so much too.
That's totally up to you all on the task force. With Roxanne, Anita, Vanessa, and Princess, we didn't have any formal titles. That's not to say they shouldn't have had titles for all of the great work that they've been doing, but I don't have a preference, and there's no rules about that specifically for like city clerk's office, boards, and commissions.
Sure.
How much longer is our meeting?
We have 25 more minutes.
Okay. I got to go shovel.
All right. Well, maybe Jackie, we can come back to that when we do have the election next month and see if there are specific positions. And also if it's things like youth outreach leader or something like that, that person wouldn't necessarily have to be one of the folks like elected to help organize the agenda and facilitate the meetings. I think we could think about it where everyone, you know, sort of commits to a particular role in this work collectively. And so then the responsibility is that much more shared across all the members.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up is at the library board for the Minneapolis Central Library. Everyone that's on it is basically an officer, but it's just like everyone is interested in certain things, so that's just kind of the job title.
Okay.
Which might be helpful since it seems like everyone here has their own little passion projects, but I don't know. I'm new here.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense because then we can align their people's passion with the goals and mission of the green zone. And then that lends itself to really bringing more structure, more intention, and more visioning for the future. You know, I know that everybody on here is a volunteer, and that's the sad reality of life. But I think that if we could be more intentional about pairing and matching people to their interests, their passions, you know, whether or not it's, you know, as we did, we broke out into small segments. You know, I see those as almost additional core planning that could really advance the work and be responsible for the overarching agenda of this body.
Sure. But yeah, I support doing leadership elections in March and then figuring out the specifics afterwards.
Michael, am I hearing you that one, or maybe it's just making my brain kind of think of this, but so before when we were developing the work plan, there was like the land use, air, and water group, and there was the green workforce group, and all of the other housing and all the other groups, community healing and violence prevention. Were you suggesting that maybe there would be someone from each of those groups who would be sort of the leader for that group, and they would then collectively set the agenda for the monthly meetings?
Well, I'm not necessarily marrying the two things. What I'm saying is that, you know, that gave us direction, that gave us guidance, that created outcomes. You know, we did the event at North High, you know, about climate, and, you know, other folks did podcasts, and there was a body of work that was germinated out of those committees. And that, you know, and so if all we do is come together once a month to hear, you know, input from the Southside or from EPA or something, we're going to fall, I think, be flat-footed and fall on our face when, you know, in order to stay alive, you have to be a live culture where you're germinating and generating activity, vision, and hope. And so I'm just suggesting that those committees were that was what generated a whole slate of activities that Marquita and I have generated. And so I think that that's a template, and that produces results.
Yep. That's actually a really good segue, because one of the asks that I have for members of the Northside Green Zone Task Force is who wants to be on the working group with Southside to finalize the development criteria that you all drafted. Now that Southside is on board, they're ready. They've got 3 or 4 folks who are ready to start meeting with a few folks from Northside to incorporate the edits that they would have, and then figure out a plan to basically bring that into like implementation.
I'm volunteering.
Awesome,
This is Leslie, and I want to volunteer. I already have notes on it, and I was been waiting and waiting and waiting. So yeah, put me down for that.
Awesome.
And I'm volunteering Michelle.
You're nominating Michelle?
No, I'm not nominating, I'm volunteering her.
How much time is going into this?
That's going to be the first question for this joint working group. We could do it a couple different ways. If we want to try and get it moving quickly, we could try to have like weekly meetings over the course of 4 weeks and see how fast we could get through the changes and developing a plan to move it to implementation. We could also meet once a month, and progress would go more slowly, but it would give more time between meetings for folks, or have fewer meetings per month. So that'll be the first question for the working group, is figuring out how frequently they want to meet.
So it's a working group with an end in sight.
Yes, I can't say how long or short that end would be. I think it depends on, is there a community engagement component to this? There is a couple partners. Marianne Abdenur at Hope Community is very interested in supporting some broader community engagement in this. And then we'd also have to figure out like how quickly mostly the city's planning department, who would be the ones responsible for implementing the majority of the recommendations, how quickly they could get these items implemented, and if there would be meetings that they need to have with the community partners.
I'm willing to volunteer for that initial work.
And I will accept Michael's nomination of me.
All right. That's beautiful. Thank you, folks.
So there's your 3.
Yep. And Roxanne also had told me previously that she was interested as well. So.
Woo!
Awesome.
Cool beans.
I'm really excited to move that forward. Jim, who is on the call with us also from CPED, has committed to helping us move through the system that is the planning department. So we've got an insider in our ranks as well.
And my battery's getting ready to die on me, so I'm gonna have to jump off this call.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
All right,
have fun.
Thanks.
Have fun
Bye-bye.
shoveling.
Let me know when that next that little planning meeting is, and I'll give you a call and try to put together a list of some of those agencies that have young leaders at their core, and see if we can reach out to them to involve them, engage them, and get them to be part of this, if not even in an official capacity.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Talk to you later.
Bye.
So I know our folks on the call, we've had a few drop off. The next item on our agenda was to kind of jump into the discussion of the work plan. I don't know if folks did have a chance to look through that earlier this week and had any thoughts. We've talked over the last several months about what are some of the priority areas, and in addition to the development criteria, which we've now just discussed and how that's moving forward. There's been a lot of interest in air pollution and environmental justice. And so, Julia is on the line tonight. She is our Northside Promise Zone, Northside Green Zone Vista She has been tracking some updates at the legislature, trying to see if any of the bills that the Northside Green Zone is interested in and has mentioned in their work plan get introduced during the session. So she'll keep us informed on that. And she's also done some research on the New Jersey Environmental Justice Bill, which we have mentioned very briefly in past meetings. And it's something that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency had mentioned that they were interested in back when we kind of had their presentation and follow-up. And so if there is interest in learning more about that policy, she's prepared kind of at any point to give a brief presentation on that. But I'm also wondering what other ideas folks had as they were going through the work plan.
I'll admit, I just started doing work on the outside of green zones because it's sometimes harder to just get people to show up at meetings, and like just trying to work with those who have been working with me to get things moved. So working on some really exciting stuff this year. And I mean, I hope to like bring in some of the needs of the green zones into that work, and try to like connect the dots everywhere. But I don't like talking about things too much. I just rather try to show people. So maybe if people start to see and get inspired, I would love the support. I'm trying to get some more leaders to start taking my place, because I would actually like to stop doing environmental justice work by the end of the year, so I can step out and do something different with my life. But still staying in touch, but just not, I don't want to work so hard no more.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, Roxanne. I think you're not the only task force member who has taken a lot of the sort of like actual implementation or the initiatives of this outside of the formal Green Zone task force structure. So like Michael has mentioned, the Northside safety net, that's it's not like within the container of Northside Green Zone, but it's like partly birthed out of that, or and a lot of the other work that Michael's been working on. Michelle's work on the edible boulevard garden. There's a connection to the Northside Green Zone, but it's her work with many other partners, as her presentation mentioned. And similarly, Yolanda working on the intergenerational healing circles. There's things that have maybe been seeded by the Northside Green Zone, but have kind of taken a life outside of it, which is great. And so, Roxanne, as you're looking for more people to kind of be directly involved in the action, I think if Northside Green Zone members are interested in that, that is part of the purpose of this body, is to help move those community initiatives forward.
What do we have, 10 minutes left?
Yep.
Maybe if nobody has any pressing, we can do a checkout question or something, or just pop. Anybody have anything else they want to update or say or invite people to for the last 10 minutes? Or I'll let you do it because you were facilitating it, but I didn't want to leave you alone like that. I was just trying to see what we do with the 11 minutes.
I love it, Roxanne.
Before everyone heads off, I feel like I should introduce myself so you're not like, who's this random girl who's been sitting on this call for 2 hours? So hi, I'm Julia. As Kelly said, I'm the Northside Green Zone / Promise Zone Vista, and I'm basically here to help support whatever programs or projects you all are interested in doing. So yeah, I've got lots of time and lots of energy. So maybe Michelle left. Well, maybe I can connect with her over email or something about Boulevards, or if there are other projects that come up in the next year, I guess, that I'm going to be working here with the city, then yeah, I'm happy to help support this. So just wanted to introduce myself before we all head off.
Thanks, Julia, for doing that, and apologies for not welcoming you and having you introduce yourself earlier.
Oh gosh, no worries.
Welcome.
Well, I like Roxanne's idea of a quick checkout. So Roxanne, do you have an example of how people should check out? Either is it like something to share or just like a word on how they're feeling tonight?
I think anybody should check out how they feel like checking out right now. So you can check out and just say, hey, I got other stuff to do. I'll see y'all later. I don't have nothing. Or you can say whatever you want to say.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm at the nail shop. I want to leave now. And I am happy to see everybody, and I hope to see more of you in the future and bring more people with you.
Thanks, Roxanne. I can go in reverse order of our check-ins. Jim, what's your checkout?
I don't really have a checkout, but I wish you all well and enjoy the super freezing weather we're going to have for the next week. That always puts me in a worrying about my furnace mode now for a week.
Yeah.
Night, everybody.
Anthony, what's your checkout? Are you still there? Maybe not. Maybe he's already checked out. Leslie, how about you?
I want everybody to have a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious rest of the weekend.
It's supercalifragilistic. Y'all got me doing too much in the nail shop. I'm gonna stop trying to embarrass myself.
Kelly, I'm here. My computer, I mean, just this whole entire meeting has been just kind of crazy, but just enjoy peace.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony.
Julie?
Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. I just want to say everybody stay safe and healthy. Stay vigilant around this virus. It's not over yet. And I cannot wait till we can meet in person again.
Yeah.
Aw, me too. It's hard on us.
Yeah. Jackie?
I guess I just want to say I'm happy to be here. I'm honored to be a part of this. And I have a 30-minute break before my first community ed creative writing class that I'm going to take. So that's my checkout.
Nice.
See you, Jackie, if you need to get off and do your thing. Get your little 10-minute break on, or 30-minute.
Yeah, I'm going to eat some food for sure.
I heard that.
See y'all.
Bye, Jackie. Julia, how about you?
Is that me? I misheard you.
Julia.
Okay.
Sorry. Too late.
There's many similar sounding names. I'm good. I also have 30 minutes before my next meeting. And I'm gonna enjoy that time and eat dinner and hope you all have a great weekend. Friday and weekend.
Thanks. And Georgian, are you on? Did I hear your voice?
I am on.
You made it
I just
on.
want to, yeah, I got on a little bit later. Oh, but I think I've been on an hour. But I just want to wish everyone to have a great Super Bowl Sunday and to stay safe.
Awesome. Thanks. And Catherine, are you still on? Did you want to do a checkout? Maybe not. I think we had another caller on the line.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just have a question. I'm a high school student that goes to Jefferson High School, and I'm on the Sustainability Commission as youth commissioner. And Bloomington is sort of thinking about environmental justice policies, and we've been kind of like looking at the green zones that you've been doing in the Northside area. And we were just kind of like wondering more, like we had some questions about it and we're just like wondering about it. So that's kind of why I joined the like last part of the call.
Okay, awesome. Well, this is Kelly. I'm the staff for the Green Zone. If I don't know if you've reached out to me already with questions. Yeah. This sounds familiar. Yeah, so if you have specific questions, we're happy to answer them. If you have questions for members of the group, it's possible folks would be willing to talk with you about it. But yeah, we're just wrapping up now, and a lot of people have signed off already. So I don't know if you have any quick questions that maybe the last remaining folks on the call could answer.
I don't really know. I might check in with the other commissioners and see if they have anything specific. But we're just kind of like thinking about that because we're transitioning into like looking at policies we can do for the commission.
Cool. And I don't know if you were listening in when we were talking about how to support more youth members, even of the Northside Green Zone Task Force. Yeah. So, I mean, I return the question to you. What has helped you or supported you in being able to be on the Bloomington Commission? And if there's things that we could do for Northside Green Zone Task Force, I'd be happy to learn from you as well.
Okay.
So thanks for joining tonight, and definitely stay in touch. You have my contact information.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And with that, we call it a wrap.
All right. Y'all have a good night. Thanks, Kelly. Thank you, everybody.